present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Fenella Fielding in just a minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome to this edition of Just a Minute. And we welcome to the show for the very first time, you just heard to represent the ladies, Fenella Fielding. And the three men are just the same. The rules have remained the same, and we try to play them just the same. I'm going to ask each one of them to speak for just a minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject in any way. And if one of the others thinks they are guilty of this crime when they're speaking, they may press a buzzer which is in front of them, and if I uphold their challenge, they will take over that subject and gain a point. If I don't uphold the challenge, whoever is speaking will gain a point, and whoever is speaking when the whistle goes telling us 60 seconds up will gain an extra point. That is the way we score, that is the way we play, and Kenneth Williams, will you begin this particular show? Something that I'm sure you're well fitted to talk about, Kenneth. Receiving compliments. Can you talk for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now?
Well, it has been said that it is more difficult to receive than to give, and where compliments are concerned, I think this is particularly true. Because one must assume an air of gratification, one must also assume... Oh, I've said twice.
Derek Nimmo, you pressed your buzzer, you've challenged twice.
A self-confessed hesitator.
A self-confessed hesitation. Kenneth, you must keep going. They might even not notice it.
It was repetition, which I admitted, your great...
Oh, so, well, that's all right, so you have a point. I don't go... No, it was not a hesitation, it was a repetition. So, Kenneth Williams keeps the subject, and there are 42 seconds left, starting now.
But when the tribute is paid to one, one immediately
Derek
feels...
Nimmo, you challenge this time.
Repetition, 1 and 1 make 2.
He did repeat one twice, so you have a point. Derek Nimmo, you take over the subject. There are 37 seconds left for receiving compliments, starting now.
The first compliment that I received was when I was sitting on Coniston Wharton, a little rowing boat, and a man came alongside me in a sailing dinghy, one Hornet it was called. It's a rather nice class of sailing dinghy. He came alongside and he said to me, "What ho, what a jolly fellow you are." I said, "How civil of you to say that. How terribly kind. May I return a compliment to you?" And he said, "No, you're only receiving them today." And I said, "So true, so true." Which is repetition.
Clement Freud has challenged.
Repetition.
Repetition of so true. So Clement Freud gains a point and he takes over the subject. 14 seconds left, receiving compliments, starting now.
This is something, Henry.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Deviation, I don't believe he's ever received a compliment.
So I don't know.
Well, that's a very good laugh and a very good challenge. But all that happens is Clement Freud has another point. He has 12 seconds for receiving compliments, starting now.
This is something Derek Nimmo thinks I very seldom receive, and in many ways he is right.
Derek Nimmo, you're challenging. Why?
I reinstate my previous challenge because he said I was right.
That is definitely a very clever challenge. So, Derek Nimmo, you take over the subject, and there are 7 seconds for receiving compliments, Derek, starting now.
The second time was in the Mall one Tuesday morning at 7:30. I was up very early, and this fellow came alongside me, and he said, "Hello."
As Derek Nimmo was speaking at the end of that round, he gets the extra point.
One finds oneself talking rubbish, absolute rubbish.
It's terribly interesting that Derek Nimmo has been in 3 complete series of this show, and only now does he realise he's talking complete rubbish. It's probably never too late, Derek. Anyway, you gained a bonus point for speaking as the whistle went, and it gives you the lead at the end of the first round. Clement Freud, will you begin the next round? The subject is odds and ends. We will talk for 60 seconds, if you can, starting now.
Odds and ends is a name given to numbers like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and to words that come at the termination of a sentence, a book, a page, possibly even a chapter. But more often than not, by odds and ends, people mean some conglomeration of articles or materials or instances for which they can find no other collective name. I have, for instance, heard my mother say, "Where did I put the odds and ends?" at which my father hit her. This was an embarrassing occasion. But more than off... No. Yes, thanks.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Well, hesitation.
Yes, Derek Nimmo has a justified point with 21 seconds left for odds and ends. Derek, starting now.
I have a little cupboard underneath the stairs in which I keep my odds and ends. There's a screwdriver there, a thimble, a button, a little tiny straw object which I've never been able to identify, although I've looked in all sorts of textbooks. There's a collar belonging to a vicar who died 4 years ago in Tunbridge Wells. There's a straw hat with a feather on the top.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged? Why?
Repetition. We've had about 7 theirs. There's this, there's that, there's the other, you see, all those repetitions.
Yeah, well, all I can say, Kenneth, is we've had lots of theirs throughout the series, and we've never challenged for theirs before, so I think it would be only fair to say no points. Continue with Derek Nimmo, 3 seconds for odds and ends, starting now.
There's a pub in Shaftesbury Avenue is full of odds and sometimes few ends.
As Derek was speaking, when the whistle went, he gains yet another bonus point. And Derek Nimmo, will you begin the next round? My worst fault. Talk on the subject if you can. 60 seconds starting now.
In the 4th round of the Cup at Wimbledon in 1959, I happened to be playing opposite Rod Laver.
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation.
Why?
He is faultless.
If you were to say that Derek Nimmo did not play against Rod Laver in the 4th round of the Cup, I would have given you deviation. But I cannot give it to you on that score, because, therefore, Derek Nimmo has another point, and there are 47 seconds for my worst fault starting now.
The decision was rather interesting, actually. It was 2 sets all, and 5-3 in my favour in the final game. What happened was, I threw the ball up terribly high in the air, smashed it hard with my racket, and it went over the net and just skimmed through the white dust. And you know that...
Kenneth Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
If it hits the white dust, it's not a fault.
No, that's perfectly
It
correct.
picks up the chalk.
Extremely clever, no. The ball is in. That's one of those brilliant challenges.
I wouldn't mind if he wasn't right.
And so, Clement Freud, you have another point. You take the subject over. 35 seconds left for my worst fault, starting now.
My worst fault is generosity, kindness, and being nice to Derek Nimmo. Many people ask me, why do you continue with this charming, witful, and intelligent progression of...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge why?
Hesitation.
Yes, he couldn't go on. He got so carried away with this misplaced thought. So, Derek Nimmo, you have another point, and there are 20 seconds left for my worst fault, starting now.
My worst fault, really, is my underlying tremendous...
Clement Freud, why do you challenge?
Deviation. He's already said that his worst fault happened at Wimbledon.
So, Clement Freud has the subject, and there are 17 seconds for my worst fault, Clement, starting now.
Hitting old ladies.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
He's
why?
already established his worst fault as being nice to me.
That's quite correct. You get him on exactly the same thing that you got you on. So... Derek, you have the subject back. Sometimes it pays to lose because you get the subject back with another point. So 15 seconds for my worst fault, Derek, starting now.
So I tied my plimsolls on rather heavily, really, and got hold of the racket very firmly in my right hand, and I got hold of this spherical object which I play the game with. I threw it extraordinarily high there, and it soared up above the clouds, and the birds sang.
Repetition. He's already thrown it.
He's already thrown it high, so Clement Freud has my worst fault, 2 seconds left, starting now.
Is this really your worst fault?
The end of that round, Clement Freud is 1 point behind Derek Nimmo, Kenneth Williams is in 3rd place, and Fenella has yet to score. But Fenella, you begin the next round. Here's this subject, the advantages of being female. Will you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, the advantages are many. For one thing, the most marvelous part is that you can cry in the pictures without anybody thinking you're effeminate. And then, you know, you can have babies. And although you can have these things, and men are so strong, they're so strong that they can carry heavy cases for us, which is very, very nice, and I like that. Also...
Derek, you've challenged. Why?
Everything.
You mean to say you couldn't carry
all
a heavy case?
As I agree, but as you can't challenge for everything, I'm going to let Fenella carry on, and we'll see how she goes, because we're enjoying it. Fenella, there are 25 seconds for you to continue with the advantages of being female, starting now.
Well, for one thing, as we're all supposed to be rather dim-witted,
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Hesitation.
Oh, no, I was timing.
This time, I'm afraid I have to give it to the most ungallant of the three, Derek Nimmo.
Oh, how...
So,
Well, it seems to me there's no advantages to being female at all.
in this game, none at all. I must say that to Fenella. 20 seconds for Derek Nimmo to continue with the subject of the advantages of being female, starting now.
There are many advantages I find in being female, particularly when I go on buses, because I find that gentlemen stand up and let me sit down. I notice that when I go into a hairdresser's, I'm always given preference over Clement Freud.
Fenella Fielding, why do you challenge?
Forgive me, but isn't this deviation?
Very devious, Fenella.
Very
devious.
unpleasant
So you take the subject back. And there are 7 seconds left for the advantages of being female, starting now.
Well, you don't have to play any rough games like men do. You don't have to play football or anything like that.
Well, as Fenella somehow or other was still managing to be speaking when the whistle went, she gained some points and puts her actually a little in front of Kenneth Williams. But Derek Nimmo still in the lead in front of Clement Freud. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? The subject is bashfulness. Can you talk to us about bashfulness for 60 seconds, starting now?
This is to do, of course, with a lack of confidence and, of course, this lack of composure, if that is the way one would have it, can lead to a certain arch demeanor which many people do interpret as bashful. But, of course, it is merely a word nomenclature, semantics, call it what you will, and really it isn't correct. It's simply a lack of ability in those circumstances. I myself, when very young, was called upon to recite break, break, break on my
Clement Freud has challenged you. And Derek Kenneth is just about to break Clement Freud, who's sitting beside him. So there, you chose the wrong poem, Kenneth, to recite. So Clement has another point, and there are 17 seconds for bashfulness. Clement Freud, starting now.
Fullness was one of the most unpleasant people at my boarding school, and whenever there was a wet Tuesday night, we used to get together to bash him. 3 of us would hold him, 2 by the legs and 1 by the arm, and it was called Bashfulness on a Tuesday afternoon, one of the most happy sports in Dodge.
As Clement Freud was speaking, as the whistle went, he got a point, and a well-deserved point, because I must tell the listeners that all throughout that, Kenneth was feeling so upset at having lost the subject that he was sticking his tongue out at Clement. So, at the end of that round, Clement Freud and Derek Nimmo are in the lead, equal. Clement Freud, your turn to begin. When I was 7. A charming subject, Clement. Will you discourse for 60 seconds on it, starting now?
When I was 7, we lived on an island in the Baltic Sea, and I had my first really unhappy experience. The publican on this particular place where we lived had hiccups terribly badly for 3 days.
Derek Nimmo, why have you challenged?
Hiccups, repetition.
An extraordinarily clever challenge, but as it doesn't sort of come within the context of the game, I give you a bonus point, Derek. Believe the subject with Clement Freud. 46 seconds. When I was 7, Clement, starting now.
After which his nose bled. It bled for many days.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
His nose bled, it bled for
Yes,
several
repetition of bled. 47
That's
seconds.
the point about noses bleeding.
Yes, but it's also repetitious, so there we are. Derek, you have the subject. 47 seconds. When I was 7, starting now.
When I was 7, I was evacuated to Cartmel Fell in the Lake District. It was at the height of the bombing in Liverpool, and my father and my mummy thought it would be safer for me there, up there amongst the water and the lakes, and there I went.
Clement Freud, you've challenged. Why?
There.
There, yes. And I didn't let
quite
Kenneth
right.
Williams have there some other time. When was that, Kenneth?
I can't remember, but you're a very good chairman, and I certainly will be the last person to find fault. There have got to be rules. You've got to have rules. Everyone should stick to the rules. I mean...
There speaks a true sportsman.
Yes, you've got to have rules, haven't you?
Yes. So, Clement Freud, you have a point, and there are 28 seconds for When I Was 7, starting now.
This poor man had lost so many red and white corpuscles that in the end he died, And as we lived on an island, a steamer arrived and a coffin was discharged. And
It's hesitation, but it's also terribly depressing, isn't it? Why does he always bring up these awful, morbid, sordid stories? When he was 7, there should have been a little happiness and light in his life, not all these corpses and bodies and the Baltic and steamers. Horrible.
I don't know whether the audience are applauding because they agree or just applauding your magnificent performance, Derek. But to go back to the game, which we left about a minute ago, I give you a point for hesitation. It was more than a hesitation, it was a full stop. There we are, 10 seconds now for When I Was 7, Derek, starting now.
And in this agricultural building, there were cows and sheep and hens and ducks, and every morning I used to go out and feed.
Kenneth Williams, why have you challenged?
4 ands.
Well, look, all right, Kenneth, I'll give you the benefit. Once before you challenged on there, I'll give it to you this time, as you're trailing a little. All right, so 4 ands, but not again. We can't have and again after this. You have the subject now. 3 seconds left. When I Was 7, Kenneth, starting now.
When I was 7, my photograph was taken, and everyone agreed it was the most beautiful thing they'd ever seen in the term of
Well, as Kenneth was speaking, when the whistle went, he gains another point, and he's now equal in 3rd place behind Derek and Nimmo and Clement Freud, who are in the lead almost equal, 1 point separating them. Derek, Nimmo, will you begin the next round? My handicap. A subject which you can enlarge on, I'm sure, any way you wish, starting now, 60 seconds.
Well, of course, I always take it with me to race meetings, really. I keep it in my back pocket, and if it's raining, I bring this tremendously handy cap out of it and put it on my head. It's waterproof. I have other ones, actually, because, you know, I have a tremendous tendency, if I'm not thinking, to go, ha, 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 how are you?
Clement Freud, you challenge. Repetition, yes. You should find a different way to laugh in this game,
It's
Derek.
my handicap. How can I talk about it without illustrating it?
Well, your handicap has given Clement Freud a point, and there are 41 seconds left for my handicap, Clement, starting now.
my handicap in golf is 27. This is achieved by taking the par score for an average golf course and adding to it the number of strokes over this total which one achieves on a normal round. I usually start on the first hole with a driver or possibly a spoon and try to...
Derek, Nimmo, why have you challenged?
He's not talking about his handicap now. He's talking about how to play golf.
No.
Oh.
Because he was talking about his handicap and he was explaining it, and if you play golf, I think you'll find that he was going to explain it quite well. 23 seconds left, Clement, for my handicap, starting now.
Having teed up, I use the club to strike the ball, which invariably lands in a bunker because I am a handicap 27 player. Where I not...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged one.
Repetition of 27.
Yes, that is perfectly correct. Derek Nimmo has a point. There are 13 and a half seconds left for Derek on my handicap, starting
It
now.
has caused me great unhappiness in my life, and I do feel it's awfully mean when people challenge me and cause me to be ridiculed.
Clement Freud, you've challenged on his
Hesitate.
handicap again. Yes, indeed. Though, Clement, you take it back. 9 seconds, my handicap, starting now.
There are other golfers who find...
Derek Nimmo, you've challenged one.
Repetition of golfers.
Yes, we've had golfers before. 6 seconds for my handicap, Derek, starting now.
And sometimes it brings tears to my eyes when people come up to me and say, oh, how can Freud be so cruel?
This game's developing to somewhat of a needle match between Derek Nimmo and Clement Freud, who have only 2 points separating them. Derek Nimmo, this time a little in the lead. Fenella and Kenneth are trailing somewhat. Fenella, will you try and begin... Will you begin the next round for us, my love? The subject, surely a delightful one for you, soirees.
Soirees.
Yes, will you try and talk for 60 seconds, starting now?
Soirees were invented at the beginning of time. But as they were French, they didn't get to this country till 1066, when we were invaded. We instantly took up this charming occupation, Gallic though it be. And since then, soirees of every sort have swelled the social scene. During a soiree, people arrive dripping with every possible kind of personal decoration. They imbibe every kind and color of alcohol, or perhaps I shouldn't say that. On a family program, they eat sandwiches cut into triangles, and bridge rolls, and they do dance to the record player or the tape recorder and have a simply lovely time being terribly witty
Well, that was absolutely enchanting. I'm sure we all want to go to one of Fenella's soirees. I must say, in fairness, I do think the three men were extremely kind, not challenging for the many hundreds of errors that she made. But we loved it so much.
Errors? What errors?
You said the decorations were dripping.
Well, it depends who you know.
Well, all I put it this way, Fenella, and nobody has got so few words into 60 seconds before. But you did it very well at a very even tempo, and you get a bonus point for not being interrupted throughout your 60 seconds.
Oh, gosh, good.
Oh, gosh, good, says Fenella, so she's back in the game. Kenneth Williams, will you begin the next round? The subject is something which I'm sure you can apply to this game. What I find unpardonable. Will you talk about that subject? 60 seconds starting now.
I find unpardonable injustice, and especially when it is manifest, when it is seen to be exactly that, the thing I've just described. Because surely all of us yearn in this world for a fair hearing. Surely we've all got the right to have a fair... Oh, such a right!
Fenella has challenged for the first time. Why?
Well, I think it was repetition.
It was repetition. So, Fenella,
And
you
a
take
fine
over...
one to talk.
So, Fenella, you take over the subject. You've gained another point, and there are 41 seconds for what I find unpardonable starting now.
What I find unpardonable is people simply not falling at my feet, rushing over the footlights, and telling me how absolutely marvelous I am every single minute of the day. That is what we all need in this world of ours today, as I'm sure Kenneth will agree. And Clement. And
Clement, why are you
Nimmo.
challenged?
And if people don't do this, if they don't like... I'm challenging myself. I want to know what you mean.
It's probably the safest way to get out of this. Do carry on, Fenella. Another 19 seconds left for what I find
about where I got
unpardonable.
up to.
Starting now. Clement, you challenge. Or shall I go back to Clement Freud's challenge of about 5 minutes ago?
It was the same thing. In hesitation.
Well, as you got in first, Clement, I must be fair and give it to you. You have a point, and there are now 22 seconds left for what I find unpardonable starting now.
The things that I find most unpardonable are hesitation, repetition, and deviation.
Fenella, Fenella, why have you challenged?
Hesitation, repetition, and deviation.
I would like to be able to give you 3 points, Fenella, but...
Three!
I can only give you 1, I'm afraid. 16 seconds left, Fenella Fielding, for what I find unpardonable, starting now.
Well, what I find unpardonable is brutality to me by Clement Freud, when here I am exposed to...
Derek Nimmo, you challenge. Why?
Deviation. She's exposed herself.
Well, actually, if you had said to me deviation for exposure, I would have said, yes, that is devious. But she has not exposed herself, she only said it.
You're not sitting where I'm sitting.
As I'm not sitting where you're sitting, Derek, all I can do is to give Fenella Fielding another point and say there are 8 seconds left, Fenella, for what I find unpardonable, starting now.
Well, I think that was an unpardonable interruption on Derek Nimmo's part.
Derek, you challenge. Why?
Repetition of Derek Nimmo.
Yes, indeed, definitely. We can't have too much of Derek Nimmo. So, you have a point, Derek, and 3 seconds for what I find unpardonable, starting now.
Home secretaries, when they say, I won't pardon that fellow.
Well, the final result, I think, in the circumstances, was very fair. Fenella Fielding was in 3rd place, just in front of Kenneth Williams, and considerably in front of them both were Clement Freud and Derek Nimmo. And Derek Nimmo has beaten Clement Freud by 3 points, and so we say this week's winner, Derek Nimmo. We do hope you've enjoyed this episode of Just a Minute, and from all of us here, goodbye. Goodbye.
The
chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.